everybody. So first of all, this is a beautiful day. It's been cold and we made it through the winter and everything, COVID and everything. Good afternoon, everybody. Man, this is a beautiful day for us to be here today. My name is Don Clark. I am one of the co-chairs for the Veteran Cemetery proposal that will benefit this area. And today's announcement is to really alert the community of some significant happenings of what's going on with that project. But before we go forward, I absolutely have to bring a point of prayer into this, because there was a great deal of prayer that got us to the point where we are. There is a great deal of prayer that we're going to need and have to depend on going forward. But more importantly, as veterans, we understand the significance of prayer, because that got us through many of our service that each of us did here standing behind me. So if you all will allow me to bring up Chaplain Rick Navard. He is the chaplain of St. John's Towers, but more significantly, he's also a veteran himself. Please help me welcome him.
Let's pray together. Lord God, as we reflect on the sacrifices made by our military to keep us safe and protect our freedoms, our hearts swell with pride and gratitude. May we honor our military and our veterans in life and in death. For as long as we ourselves have breath, let their praises continue to be on our lips. May we so dedicate ourselves to support these men and women as they take up their arms and as they finally lay them down again. For this is our charge and our calling. And as we pledge ourselves to the task of constructing a final place for our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, and Guardsmen, we ask that you would consecrate each patch of dirt and let it be hallowed ground. This is our prayer. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Navard. So listen, I do want to let you all know this is a great deal of enthusiasm that we have here today. I asked former mayor of Augusta, Bob Young, to come in because it's absolutely appropriate to understand that during his charge as mayor, he took the fight of trying to bring a cemetery to this great area. His efforts were thwarted and were kind of sidelined because of 9/11 and the approaching effects and otherwise of what we had to change and transition in preparation for that. But it never left him. It never left his heart. It never left his effort or his attention of still trying to bring what is well overdue to this great community and the community that serves a great population of the men and women who have served our country. So I wanted to acknowledge that, because we always have to acknowledge where we started. We're going to talk about where we're going, but please help me in congratulating and thanking former Mayor of Augusta, Bob Young, for the efforts to kick this thing off.
Thank you, Don. Thank you.
Now, it's appropriate that Bob served in the Vietnam era, and I've served, of course, in the era of the modern day service member. So bringing those two entities together, there's absolutely nothing that was going to stand in our way to make this thing happen.
Bringing two NCOs together.
But thank you, Bob, again, for all of the efforts and all of the men and women from the commission at that time that were working to try to bring this on. Now, about 2 years ago, Bob and I were alerted by former Commissioner Bill Fenoy to come together and say, let's resurrect this effort. Let's resurrect this idea of bringing a final resting place for our veterans. And he's not here today, but we want to give him and the members of the commission and the city of Augusta acknowledgement and thanks for taking the charge to bring this back to the forefront. The excitement about today is this, and men and women that are standing here that represent every era, every service and otherwise, with your continued service, we are proud to say that the proposal that was made to the state of Georgia for the $1 million to kick us off was absolutely approved and was carried by our men and women of the delegation. So if you understand, there's a great deal, and Rob, come on up. I know you just got here, but he is absolutely an essential part of what we're doing as well. Mr. Rob Malden is the principal architect of 2KM Architect Firm. More importantly, his firm planned each of the existing cemeteries that are in the state today. So Rob, we are so glad to have you on board with us and being that technical advisor for us, but also going forward, helping bring this reality to the area. Please help me recognize him as well. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, veterans of all ages, we are going to get our veteran cemetery right here in the CSRA. That kind of gave me some shivers right there, y'all, because I'm telling you, I know many of the women paved that way before me, even as a service member, and I know for them and their families, it's going to be even more of a benefit because we won't have to travel to Fort Jackson's State Cemetery there. We won't have to travel to Milledgeville to go there. We will travel right here in our own backyard at the CSRA and have something to be proud of and stand tall on the fact that our area will have a veteran cemetery. So listen, there are a lot of folks that have come here from Atlanta and otherwise, but I want to make sure that everyone understands this was a concerted effort. This was a collective effort. There were many, many hands involved with this. Bob and I, of course, are one piece of it, but the fact that we have our elected officials, the folks that you all have all voted to retain as your elected representatives from the federal side to the state side, each of them is going to actually take a part to really kind of just be a part of this celebration. But also we want to thank and acknowledge them for all of their efforts as well. So before I take any more air out of outside, I'm going to pass the mic over and introduce our very own Congressman Rick Allen, who of course did that letter of recommendation for us, but he's also that push that we need for the federal side.
Well, what a beautiful day. Thank you, veterans, for your service beyond self. The greatest love is to give your life for another. Each one of you have done that. Less than 1% of the population of our country have done that. Tom, good to see you this morning. And all of you have done so much for this community. You're important to this community, and we certainly want to honor you with this. Bob Young, who was mentioned earlier, has met with me several times and kept me in the loop on this. And obviously, thanks to our state leaders, that was an amazing seed money to start this thing. And obviously, next it goes to the federal level. But certainly, we're going to get our colleagues in Washington behind this. We're going to make this happen. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. Thanks for your leadership, everyone's leadership who had a part in this. This is important. And again, thank you to all our veterans. Thank you very much.
All right, so from the House, the State House of Representatives, we have Representative Gloria Frazier, who's going to speak on behalf of their efforts. Please welcome her as well.
Good afternoon. Thank you to all my comrades in arms and all the retirees that are here. I am a military spouse of a 23-year Army retiree. Poor. So I did my time too. I would just like to say, on behalf of the Augusta Richmond County delegation, Representative Wayne Howard, who I think is still en route coming out to be with us today, that would like to thank all of you all. Thank you to Bob Young, Bill Flanor for even having the vision to bring this back, and to Don Clark. He is our legislative liaison. And believe me, you all, Don called us at 10, 11 o'clock at night in Atlanta. He didn't mind calling to see had the $1 million been put in the budget yet, Bob. And so, and when it was done, he called me again at about 11:30 p.m. to let me know that the money was in there. And I said, yeah, Don, we voted for it. This is the seed money. We're all veterans. I live in a veteran community outside of Gate 5, Fort Gordon, and we have a lot of my neighbors who have passed on, but they're in Columbia, South Carolina, and they want to come home. So I'm hoping when we get this done within the next, and I'm hoping it less than 5 years, Bob, that we can get this done, we can have some of our folks come home. Because families now have to travel all the way to Milledgeville, all the way to Columbia, South Carolina, to just to visit their loved ones. So this is very, very important. And I don't only look at it as economic growth and development. I'm saying Gracewood, Southside, because that's where it's going to be. That's where the land is. That's where we're going to have it. And so we are looking at, economic development for the whole city. So again, thank you all so much for this vision. It has truly completed the way I feel about where my final resting place is going to be. And so many of our veterans that are here. It was an honor to ask for that $1.3 million in this day and time. But we are going to get the rest from our congressman. We're going to break ground, and we're going to have one of the most beautiful resting place for our veterans. Again, thank you.
So, of course, like I told you guys, this was a Herculean effort. And, of course, the Senate, the state Senate, of course, there are 2 gentlemen in there specifically, but there are more, of course. But there's 2 that's represented here today. But we want to make sure that we acknowledge them. We have Senator Max Burns and Senator Harold Jones, of course, for all of their efforts in carrying the torch. And I want to give each of them the opportunity to say some words real quick.
Thank you so much, and it's obviously an honor to be here as a son of a Korean War veteran. I can tell you how honored I am to actually be here today and to help to make this happen. It's very important. One of the things you hear about is how we as elected officials disagree from the state level to the federal level, Republican and Democrat. But let me tell you, when it came to working for you, for working for our family members, there was no disagreement. We were totally 100% on the same page. No matter what argument may have taken place that day, when Don called or Bob called and we started talking about this issue, it took precedence. And it tells you the respect that we have for our veterans in this community. And so it's an honor and a privilege to be here. And I cannot express how much they worked, Don and Bob worked for you guys, and everybody did. But you know what? It was because of you, quite frankly. You're the driving force of all this, and I truly mean that. It was a contentious session, but nothing was contentious about working for you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Let me echo what Senator Jones said. First, thank you to the veterans. Thank you. I'm a veteran. I'm a proud Army veteran from the Vietnam era, and I am absolutely delighted that we will have a home for servicemen and women to come back to the CSRA and have their final resting place. I have to thank a few folks. I appreciate Senator Jones and his work in the Senate. I appreciate Lieutenant Governor. I appreciate a gentleman by the name of Blake Tillery. You may not know Blake, but Blake's the chairman of the Appropriations Committee in the state Senate. And he's kind of a key person. I just want you to know that. And Representative Frazier will also tell you there's this gentleman by the name of Terry England. And you may not know Chairman England, but he's the chairman of the Appropriations Committee of the House. And without a cooperative effort, we could not make this happen. And I want to thank Don and Bob for their tireless efforts. We've been talking about this for me for just, 6 months, maybe 9, something like that, maybe a year, I don't recall. But I can remember the passion in their voice and the commitment that they've had to make this a reality. So, it's a beautiful day in Augusta. It's a beautiful day in the CSRA, and it's a great day for our veterans. Congratulations.
So ladies and gentlemen, we do have the privilege of having the commissioner for Georgia's Department of Veteran Services. He came all the way from Atlanta, said he absolutely would not have missed the opportunity to be here and celebrate with this community. Please help me welcome my friend, our leader, Commissioner Mike Roby.
Thank you, Don. To our veterans, thank you for all that you do. Congressman Allen, Senators Burns, Senator Jones, Representative Frazier, it's an honor to be with you this afternoon. Thank you for inviting me to join you today to celebrate the first steps towards establishing a new Veterans Memorial Cemetery. I would like to thank our partners who helped make this possible. We would not be here today without the efforts of Don and Bob and Augusta's Veteran Service organizations. Their dedication and perseverance in asking for a veteran cemetery in the Augusta region has made this all possible. I also want to thank our legislators for listening and seeing the need to expand the state veteran cemetery program. Thank you for sponsoring a House resolution and showing your support for this initiative. State Representatives Prince, Nelson, Newton, Lott, Fleming, and Frazier. We also want to extend our gratitude to State Senator Max Burns and Senator Jones, who worked hard to keep the support on through the state Senate. Our state Veterans Memorial Cemeteries hold a special place in my heart. My family chose to lie my mother and father to rest at our Veterans Cemetery in Milledgeville. They rest now on a quiet hill, surrounded by their fellow brothers and sisters in arms. Our Veterans Memorial Cemeteries are maintained to a shrine status standard, cared for daily by our dedicated cemetery staff. They provide an honorable, respectful place for Georgia's veterans and their families to eternal rest. It is my sincere hope that this new cemetery will also become a special place in the hearts of many Georgians in the years to come. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but we're excited and proud to bring this well-needed and deserved cemetery to veterans and families in Augusta. I also want to give a special thanks to a dear good friend, I know he's here, Rob Malden, 2KM, for all that he's done and continues to do. Thank you again for all those who support this project. May God bless you, your families, and the United States of America.
Thank you, Commissioner Roby. So listen, I also want to make sure that I identify, because you've heard from your federal leadership, you've heard from your state leadership, but let me tell you about the local municipalities and the local leaders in our surrounding communities, but also right here in Augusta. Those men and women stood tall, and each of those different municipalities submitted a resolution of support when we made this initial proposal. Augusta specifically took on even more of an ownership role because the proposed site right now is in Augusta. But again, it doesn't stop at Augusta. It benefits this entire region of men and women that have served their countries all around. But I definitely do not want to hesitate to mention the leadership that was shown at the Augusta level, but also Columbia County level, and the other counties, and the Augusta Regional Commission, who all were, again, just like Senator Jones said, all of them were equally in support of bringing this to the area. So Commissioner Williams, Dennis Williams, of course, is the designated representative for the Augusta Commission. I want to give him the opportunity and thank them for all of the leadership that they've shown in going forward. Commissioner Williams.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Augusta-Richmond County Board of Commissioners, we'd like to thank you for your presence this afternoon and for the hard work. And this is a project that we believe will be beneficial to our community and a draw card More people will want to move to Augusta because they realize and they can see how we care for our veterans. So once again, thank you so much for your participation and your cooperation, and a great day to you all.
All right, so let me make a few points of clarification. And Bob, if you and Rob can join me real quick, I do want to clarify. So this $1 million, what this $1 million does is it is the money that we needed to get the next phase of what's going to have to happen. So we will have to submit a pre-application. Now, this project will be benefited through a program through the VA, which is a Veterans Cemetery Grant Program. So we will submit the pre-application for that, but the state has boldly and proudly shown that they want a cemetery in this area. This will be the third cemetery in the entire state of Georgia that will be positioned. But that $1 million was essential because that showed the investment that the state is willing to put forth to make this a reality for this area. Right now, Gracewood is the proposed site. But again, we will continue finalizing if that will be the final site or if there will be another site selected. But as of right now, that is the selected site that we're trying to move forward with.
But it won't disrupt the hospital.
Right. And I want to make sure and clarify that, and thank you for saying that, Bob. So we're saying Gracewood. But but let me clarify something. This in no way will interfere with the operations of that hospital. This will no way displace anyone that is receiving care at that facility. This in no way will come into the boundaries of what they have established right now as what we know and recognize as Gracewood. The area that we have identified, there's acres and acres of undeveloped land that has never been touched. That is where we're looking to place the cemetery. So I needed to make that point of clarification because I know everyone keeps saying Gracewood, Gracewood, Gracewood. And every last one of us understand the needs and the care that the patients that are out there receives and how essential that care is to them and their families. So I needed to make that point of clarification. But again, this is that big step that we needed to make this a reality for this area. Commissioner Roby and his office has a humongous task of bringing this forward, but of course with members such as Congressman Allen and others who are going to be pushing from the federal side, I think we're going to make sure that this is a pretty smooth process. But at the end of the day, Augusta, CSRA, surrounding areas, you all have a lot to be excited about because we're bringing that veteran cemetery to this region. So we specifically asked the media to come for obvious reasons, of course. Instead of just Paul revering it in the streets, we wanted to make sure that everybody got the message. But we want to give you all the opportunity from the press if you all have any questions so that we can give points of clarification and otherwise. You good? Okay, great. Susan. So Gracewood is our primary selection right now. Gracewood is the primary selection, but we do have state properties also involved in the event that we have to change site selections. But as of right now, that is our primary selection. So that's the one we're going to put a lot of the effort around, but we're also ready to pivot in the event we have to a different location. To another alternate location. Right now, again, Gracewood is the site that we're choosing. All right. Yeah, and I think Representative Frazier spoke on that. You know, economic development especially for the South Augusta area, you know, huge. So let me lay this out and give everybody a picture. So many of the cemeteries that you see, the state cemeteries, the federal cemeteries, beautiful. beautifully landscaped, beautifully set up and otherwise. That within itself will be a beacon for that area, but also it'll be an attractiveness for businesses, for others to may even position different businesses and some type of economic development out there in that area. Plus, they're also going to need some employees to work the facilities, okay? Because of course, Commissioner Roby's office manages all of the cemeteries that we have now, so that will be under his budget. But they will need folks that will work the grounds. This won't be managed by city or local municipalities. This will be managed by the state. Yes, sir.
I did want to add one thing. I have with me retired Sergeant First Class Paul Lynch from our office. Paul is in charge of our military liaison. Paul will be spearheading this effort in our office in direct communication with Washington, D.C. to make this happen. But I wanted to make sure that y'all knew that Paul was behind this, and we're going to do all we can do to get this done. Thanks, Paul, for your service.
Yes, sir.
What is the projected final total cost for the cemetery? And is this for Georgia veterans only?
Yeah, and I'll bring up Commissioner Roby so that he can kind of speak to the budget standpoint, because again, that budget will be under his.
I'm gonna have Rob Malden come up because my cemetery director's not with me today, but I can tell you, Rob has built the Glenville Cemetery and also the Milledgeville, and he can give us a pretty good. I got a ballpark figure, but I'm gonna let Rob, if you would.
So at this point, it's preliminary. It's dependent upon what the Veterans Administration approves for the final grant and the final scope. That is all geared around how many veterans will be served and the projection of how many veterans will actually be buried within a 10-year period. So that's the baseline. At this point, based on the history of developing Milledgeville back in 2000, and also with Glenville in around 2007, those two facilities have all the components that Augusta will have. And that same model in terms of design, character, setting, facilities will be similar or almost exact here in Augusta. So with that, at the moment, we're projecting that it will be a $10 million project. The VA requires a match by the state of 10% for their grant. And that's so that you have enough money, as they term seed money, to be able to develop the initial phases, design it, bid it, and then request the final grant. And then the state administers that grant and is reimbursed by the VA for each month, each stage of development. So that's what that projection is at the moment. And to the question about sites, we did look at other sites. This site at Gracewood site, the southern portion of the site at the moment was the most attractive in terms of it is state property. That's a requirement that it either be owned directly or donated to the state. So that was a bonus that it's state property. And also the proximity of roads, being able to get there easily and being able to have a presence on major thoroughfares so that everybody can find their way there, not just stumble upon it.
I heard 10 acres. Exactly how many acres are
Well, there's at least 275 undeveloped acres. Of that, there's portions that are slated to other operations on the campus, and that does not include the primary buildings, as was noted by Don. That just is the open area that's available. Of that, the initial phase will probably only encompass a development of about 15 acres of that. And then every 10 years, the intent is, as the need is presented, a new expansion of the cemetery to continue to be able to bury veterans, to have the burial sites, the columbaria, all the features, those primary features are in the phase one. So you have what will be the foundation for the future cemetery development for many, many decades into the future.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
And I know, Representative Frazier, I know you had a point of clarification.
I just had a question.
Excuse me.
For the military spouses, men and women that are probably listening today, can you please clarify to them their role also in the cemetery as it relates to?
Okay. I'm not the expert on all the qualifications, so if I misspeak, please feel free to correct me. But both dependents and spouses are eligible for burial in the cemetery, regardless of who comes first. They are eligible, and that is something that is true of all the federal cemeteries and state cemeteries. So that's something that is a valuable benefit to the veterans and their spouses. Did that answer your question? Obviously, the spouses have worked very hard throughout that, whether they served or not. So the sacrifice is part of that, and so that they can be positioned and buried together for eternity. So.
Any more questions for the from the media? Because I know my veterans, even though they're standing tall, looking good, it's getting a little warm. So we want to take that in consideration too. But listen, I absolutely cannot end this without giving a special shout out and acknowledgement to the Patriot Guard Riders, led by, of course, Assistant Captain Leon McLam. These men and women, of course, tirelessly serve throughout the state, escorting veteran after veteran, family member after family member to their final resting place. And I'm telling you, I have so much respect, admiration, and appreciation for these men and women that stand here today. All right, again, so I just want to say it just like I started it. Augusta, CSRA, we got a veteran cemetery coming your way, and you guys got a lot to be proud of and to celebrate. But we wanted to make sure that we made this announcement proudly today. And I know it's Masters Week and all that good stuff, but this is something equally to be excited about. Thank you guys again for coming and for participating.